Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, giving folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. You're probably noticing I have a bit of a frog in my throat. It is what it is. These videos gotta get made. So we're gonna go ahead. If you don't like it, sorry, don't listen. But I gotta get these videos out. We have a question from YouTube user GB, who asked us, "Hi Vince, could you address this question? If an employer initially denies a necessary accommodation for several months, but later approves the same request, what potential defense might they have for not providing the accommodation earlier? Doesn't approving what they previously denied imply an acknowledgement of failure to accommodate?" Well, GB, first and foremost, they're probably not going to need a defense, because a lot of employment attorneys might not take the case, right? You could always bring it pro se, you could bring it with the agencies, there's a lot of things you could do. I'm not saying the case has no value, but I am saying if they denied an accommodation for 2 or 3 months and then one day just granted you the accommodation, that is going to very likely chop out most of the value of that claim, because they've gone ahead and done the right thing in the end. Now, there's certainly damages for what they put you through up front, no question. No question there is. The question is, are there enough damages for an attorney to get involved and spend money and time on that case? And I think you're going to find that most attorneys might think there's not. Now, there's certainly different situations. I can think of a situation where, like, you apply for an accommodation, they say no, and they fire you, and they give your similarly situated peer the same accommodation 3 months later. Well, that's a different story. That case could be worth a whole bunch, and you might have a really good argument then, right? But generally speaking, in the scenario where you apply for an accommodation, they don't give it to you for 3 months, and then one day they just happen to give it to you, odds are the damages might be low. So they might not really need a defense. Still claim, still has a value, just to be clear. Now, what could their defense be? I mean, the simplest one is, things changed. We got a new software. We got new equipment. We built out a system for remote work. We built out a system by which we could make your accommodation happen. We hired someone to cover, you're going to do this accommodated work, and we hired someone to do the other stuff, right? There's a lot of things that could happen in a span of time that would take an accommodation they thought was not reasonable and make it reasonable. Yeah, the easiest one, probably the most common example, is during the pandy. We won't call it what it was because it gets YouTube upset. When everybody was remote working, a lot of companies bought systems for remote work. They bought webcams and software and licenses and weird things to see if your mouse was moving, and training for managers on how remote work should be handled, and expectations and new employee. They spent a bunch of money making remote work feasible. Before they did all that, a lot of those employers probably spent a lot of time telling folks that remote work was not a feasible accommodation. It was not reasonable. But after they spent all that money, well, their attorneys probably said, hey, you know, it's reasonable now. Those remote work accommodations, you're going to have to grant those now. Those employers might not have been thrilled about that, but things changed, and so the reasonability standard was applied differently. That's a really good defense. Hey, before it wasn't reasonable, but then we spent a bunch of money making it reasonable. Now it's reasonable. Sorry, right? Like, that's a really good argument. It's a really good one. I don't know what your employer's defense might be, but could be something like that. GB, if this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. Share the video. It helps us grow. New catchphrase? I will track the comments in this to provide follow-up if you have follow-up questions. Take care.